Do a barrel roll. All right, let's try that out. All right, let's try that out. Sweet. Okay, so I need to get the audio figured out here a little bit. I want the music to just be slightly louder. I'm gonna have a little bit of echo here for a few seconds. I need to get the audio figured out here a little bit. I want the music to just be slightly louder. I'm having a little bit of echo here for a few seconds. There we go. Okay. Alrighty. So we can toss that to the side for now. Let's see what you guys got. What's up? Are early American civilization farming techniques going to be on the final? Yes, they are. I can answer that one very quickly. Can I go over the mandate of heaven? Sure. I don't have a problem doing that. Let's do, actually, let's make this chat pop out. That would make my life so much easier. Awesome. So the mandate of heaven is in China. Okay, and the mandate of heaven is basically, yes, I know I'm dropping frames. It's because I'm streaming music. I may just cut the music out entirely just to make sure I'm not dropping. Let's see if that makes it better. Hey man, Macs are not made to stream, you know, immensely strong. Like, they do not have the strongest computing processing power out there, so. I know it's lagging a ton. But of course, God, you're all-knowing and all-seeing, so I would expect that you would see that my stream is lagging. See if that's better. This is why I don't stream games that I play online, because my computer simply couldn't handle it. It would just catch on fire and explode. So, mandate of heaven. Well, let's talk about that. How do I want to explain this? Yeah, let's do it like this. You let me know if my mic is not loud enough. Okay, so let's do mandate of heaven. Okay, so China. Okay, and you need to remember that it operates on the mandate of heaven, and unity and fragmentation like go right along with each other, right? So we have, I'm just going to go ahead and type this out, because this is probably the best way to explain it, is inside the circle. Fragmentation. Okay, so here in unity, somebody has claimed the mandate, okay, and times are good. I can zoom this in a little bit so you guys can see it better. Okay, and then basically what happens is that times start to go bad. Okay, so times go bad. This could be flooding, bad management, etc. Okay, which means down here, when stuff breaks apart, okay, we call that fragmentation. And basically that was a sign that heaven had removed its mandate. So heaven pulls the mandate, meaning that you no longer had the support of basically heaven for your rule, or basically it's a sign that you just weren't blessed by it. So this is used as a reasoning by many different Chinese dynasties as the reason why they should overthrow the current dynasty in power, because heaven had taken away its mandate. Okay, so what would happen then at this point is that some new power, okay, it could be from a rebellion, could be from another, basically I guess dynasty within a dynasty, because there were, you know, several sets of families oftentimes within China. Some new power claims the mandate. Okay, so there you go. Let's see. Can you please go over Metacom and King Philip? Yeah, I think I've done that quite a few times. I don't know why that one is so confusing. Here's what I'm going to do, Megan. I'm going to link you out to the last live stream that I did. And let's see. I'm trying to think which one that was. Because there's a, like, I've actually, like, linked the time, like, down in the description. 1 second here. I just don't remember which one it was. I think it was, like, one of the earliest ones that we did. No, not that far back. That was last year. 1 second. I'm looking for it. Find it. Yep, it's right here. 43:38. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna put it here in the link. Okay. Okay. That was at Megan Golden. There we go. Okay. Let's see. What was the main purpose of Taoism? You really forgot about it. Taoism is all about finding meaning in the middle of the Warring States period, when people are looking to as like, what is the answer for all of this chaos and death that's happening around? And actually, that has to do with the drawing here. That happens that moment where Taoism is invented. Not surprisingly, where people are looking for meaning, where they're having a lot of time, basically with death and awful rebellions, happens right here. Okay, and that should make sense, because at a time when things are falling apart, oftentimes people look to not just necessarily religion, but philosophy sometimes for answers. And so that's this time period. It's called the Warring States period. It's right when we get Taoism. Okay, and now again, the main purpose is basically to help people find meaning. Now it says that the way you do that is through following the Tao, which is the way. And I've done something on Taoism. I think I did that last live stream, but let's see, which one was that? Yeah, I think that was the last one, but I need to pull it up. That one was all D-Kush questions. Yep, here it is. Okay, Kyle, I'm gonna link you out to where I talk about it, because it's just gonna make your life a lot easier to go back and actually see what I said, rather than me just have to completely re-explain it. So tagging God here, and then that was at 11:57. Okay, there you go, bub. Great, we're getting into metaphysical debates in YouTube chat. You can always trust the YouTube chat to get into really good conversations. Actually, there was a really interesting, this is completely unrelated, I guess somewhat unrelated to history. There was a theorist who, I was looking over some of his stuff about like online chats and those kind of things, and he actually proposed this theory, which I guess somewhat kind of like seems like it would be true, that he says that eventually all disagreements on places like Facebook or Twitter or things like that eventually devolve. You give them enough time and they devolve down into somebody accusing somebody else of being Hitler, which is kind of a, you know, interesting thing. It's an interesting proposal. You know what? We keep discussing this question, and all of a sudden we're going to start talking about, is water wet? Which I do not want to get into that debate, because I don't care. Let's see. What's next? Minoans in the English Civil War. Okay, Mackenzie, this is actually something really, really important, and for any D-Kush student out there, or D-Kush, for any world history student out there, there was a mistake that was made on our, let's see, it would have been our study guide that we did 2 years ago. Somehow the question on your guys' study guide about the English Civil War got copied onto there. We do not deal with the English Civil War until next semester. Okay, what I can do is I can go over the Minoans. I can do that very, very quickly. But don't worry about anything with the English Civil War on there. That's like super important that you make sure you don't do that, because you're doing way too much if you do, and we haven't even studied that yet. Okay, so the Minoans. We had them in an activity, which is going to kind of... Why am I... Oh, God. Here we go. Water is not wet. You get wet once you come outside the way. Jeez. Oh, boy. That would be a great way to promote the stream, though, is like I just automatically call the live stream, is water wet? And then, like, all of a sudden we get tons of people who are not even in the school coming in and commenting. All right. Minoans. Greek geography. Groovy Greek geography. I wish, like, the one thing I do wish about YouTube chat is because, like, it forces you guys, like, you can't do it on a, like, a school account, is I can't see your names unless, like, you actually put that, like, in your account. It's super annoying. It's like, I have no idea who Smile Games is. Just saying. Okay. So Greek geography. So this was, okay, the Minoans. And my formatting is being awesome, as always. Okay. The Minoans are on an island, okay, right down here. Which, of course, mine doesn't zoom in now. Okay, you're going to see this island right down here. It's called Crete. Okay. And they really own the entire island, but their capital city, I suppose you could say, is at Knossos. Okay, it's Knossos. Is that how you pronounce that? Knossos pronunciation? How to pronounce? Here we go. I'm listening.
Knossos. 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 Knossos.
Second, I have to actually like listen to the live stream because I can't hear the audio out of my book right now. Knossos. Is that? One second. I'm having to listen myself, which is weird. Let's see. What's it say? Knossos. Okay, so I guess I was right. Knossos. At least it says it like, 15,000 times. So, okay. Anyways, so Knossos. There you go. Now, from what we know about them, the Minoans are actually a really interesting group. Basically, and I'll kind of go to this text here, and I will highlight kind of some of the big stuff. So the Minoans are one of like the early, I guess not necessarily the earliest Greek people, because there's also like the Mycenaeans who were there and a few other people who we didn't talk about. But the really why we kind of pick on the Minoans is because I think they are like a really good example of how trade was so important to Greece. Because again, Greece is it's very, very mountainous, and so it cuts everything up into city-states. And so really like the Aegean Sea, which is all around Greece, like that sea is incredibly important to trade and to like literally the life of that island. And they're at a really, really good location. Like this island is at the, and again, we can't see the world map here, but like this island is right in between Africa, Asia, and Europe, I guess, up that way. And so they have like this phenomenal like location. And so they do tons of things which are really, really cool. So like metalworking, the frescoes that they paint. Okay, they were very famous for their religious activities and from what we know, we think it was bull jumping was part of that. We're not exactly sure if it was just a form of entertainment. So yeah, it says the success of the Minoans was based on trade, not conquest, which is kind of, I think, an important point. So nearest, they had 10 mines, precious stones, copper, ivory, gold, silver, Nasa. Oh, see, it was right there. I shouldn't have gone and looked it up. Yeah, they're polytheistic. Frescoes, which is this painting right here. Okay, the one I just showed. It's pretty awesome. Now the thing is that, like, besides it being a really good example of how trade happens in Greece, it also, I think, is kind of an interesting place to study because we really don't know why the Minoans fell. Probably, I think the most plausible explanation right now is kind of a combination of things. We know that there was major earthquakes in the area. We know that tsunamis hit the island. We know that volcanic ash likely was a contributing factor. But I think ultimately our best theory is that combined with invasions from outside people, it's like all these things coming together that basically made life there not work anymore. So that's what you need to know about the Minoans. They're just an interesting group to study. I'm so fat, Mr. Ridgway. Okay. Like pH fat. How do you pronounce Liz? I'm glad you haven't forgotten about that, Nick. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling back up here to see. Can I go over Ashoka? Sure. Yeah, Ashoka was from a while ago. Okay, so I can actually explain Ashoka very, very quickly. So there were 2 empires that we looked at in India. Okay, or well, I guess technically 3. So we had the early Indus River Valley civilizations, which you can go back and look at. Then we had the Aryans who came to that area. Now, give them some time, okay, and then we get the first empire, which is the Mauryan Empire, and Ashoka is part of that, okay, and then after them was the Gupta, okay, which is kind of like India's golden age. Okay, so Ashoka, he is the grandson of the guy who founds the Mauryan dynasty. You know, if you don't remember the thing about Ashoka, a good way to like remember him is essentially he's the guy who is this really powerful general in India. He has tons of war elephants. You might have like remembered looking at that, and he basically goes on to conquer most of India except for a few kingdoms down in the south, which I think is Tamil, Tamil. Anyways, so what he does after conquering basically all of India is he, at one battle that's extremely bloody, he converts to Buddhism, and he basically spreads Buddhism then throughout India afterwards. And that's he's kind of known for making this really kind of like massive transition. Now, some people say that that's just a very convenient thing to do after you've wiped out all your enemies. Other people say that like his beliefs were real. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Let's see. You guys did a comic on him, if you remember as well. What is the motivation for Virginia settlers? It depends, Megan, at what time you're talking about. Okay, so yes, you said, was it tobacco? Yes, later, tobacco, though, is a means to get money. Okay, and by money, eventually, I mean status. Early on, though, that's not. Tobacco is not even in their minds as to that could even be a thing. Not until we get John Rolfe. Imagine being some random soldier ready to fight and you've never seen an elephant before, and then old boy Ashoka comes out with war elephants. I'd personally be terrified. Yeah, man. How fast does an elephant run? Let's look that up. How fast do elephants run? I bet somebody's got a video on this. Oh, look, the Smithsonian has a video on this. Why would the Smithsonian have a video on this? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It said something about researchers. I just want to see, like, how fast they are. Because you can imagine, like, I can't remember the exact number that Ashoka has, but it's a crazy number. Like, it's over 1,000.
Sunday, the 17th of December.
And
we think that the highest speed that an elephant can reach is between 20 and 20 of mass. The answer is
wow, they,
yes.
Like, laced them up
Elephants
with,
do run.
Like sensors.
But strangely enough,
Whoa. That's really cool.
We weren't expecting anything better when 2 young elephants arrived.
Oh, dude. Okay, now that may not seem fast, okay, like when you see that for the first time, but if you can imagine that hitting you, okay, like how much does an average elephant, how much does an Indian elephant weigh? Okay, an Asian elephant, mass. Male, 6 tons. Okay, getting hit by a 6-ton tank that is wearing, well, and that's not even counting like the weight of armor, right, on top of that. And then also they would be like, if you haven't ever seen what they eventually wore, elephant armor. Ooh. I'm gonna have to, well, let's put God in timeout here. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and just oh yeah, look at that. See, man, you gotta keep that chat clean, dude. Okay, so yeah, if you've never seen elephant armor, seriously, this is not something you want to get hit by. Okay, those things running, it's like getting hit by a tank. Not fun. If you've seen human beings get hit by a tank, you know how that turns out. It mostly starts and ends with the sound squish. Let's see. You would lay that elephant on his back. Really, Nick? I would love to see that. You bench 6 tons? Let's see. Ashoka did it. Got it. What is the motivation for Virginia settlers? Yep, we got that one. Oh, okay, Megan, I'll answer your question about the Virginia Company because that's kind of related to what you asked before. So, yeah, I know, you made multiple accounts, Kyle. Nice. So, basically, what the Virginia Company is that's a good example of what we call state-sponsored capitalism. So that's where it's most of the, I want to say it was a pretty large chunk of the stock in that company, in the Virginia Company, was actually owned by the Crown. Okay, so again, state-sponsored capitalism, mercantilism, that's the way how the British Empire happened, essentially. They have these companies go out and explore the world and colonize and those kind of things. So the Virginia Company is essentially that. It's the perfect example of mercantilism. Let's see. Okay, I know you've gone over this before. Could you go over both the Persian and the Peloponnesian Wars? I can try. I'll try to make it as quick and painless as possible. Yeah, let's just go dig it up here. Just be aware, like, there was, again, I'm not going to, like, necessarily go over the entire thing of, like, every little part of the war. I'm going to hit the important stuff, which was our objectives from that. So just keep that in mind. Persian War. I feel like, did I really just not give this one alliteration when we did this? No, that's not the name of it. Let's try Persian. Just see where that gets us. I thought it was the painful. Yeah, there it is. Savage Sparta off of Athens. Okay, so Greek city-states, right? Make sure you're aware of that. You want to know that those are a thing. Yeah. Okay, so what we were looking at in this was how perspective influences how we understand the causes and effects of the Persian War. All right, so the causes part is a little easier, I think, to understand in terms of perspective. The effects, though, are a little bit more complex. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to pop this open from, I think this one's the Greek perspective. Okay, and I'm actually going to have this, oh no, it's the Persian perspective. Hey, that's fine. We can do that. So essentially what happens is that when the Persian Empire is beginning to build itself up, right? And we've talked about the Persian Empire. We talked about, they would demand tribute from people, but they weren't really that savage, like in that sense of the word, not our sense of the word today. And then we also had the Greek city-states setting up, okay? And again, I know you can't necessarily like see this map here very clearly, okay? But over here in this area, okay, and I'm talking about this area over here on this like side near the Persian Empire, there was actually Greeks living there, and they were called the Ionian Greeks. And the Ionian Greeks essentially weren't too big of fans of being owned by the Persians. They kind of found more, and this kind of makes sense, right? If you think about the Aegean Sea, like being essentially the Sea of Greece, they had much more in common with Athens and Sparta than they probably did with the Persians, in terms of culture and who they saw themselves kind of being identified with. And so when this group of Ionian Greeks starts over here to begin a rebellion against the Persians, the city of Athens decides to help them out. They send some ships over, and even though the rebellion is crushed, the Persian Empire doesn't forget that happens. And so basically from that point on then, the Persian Empire is like, okay, we're sick of the Greeks, we're going to put the city-states down, here we go. And the leader of the Persian Empire at that time, his name was Darius. Okay, he basically marches not only like a huge army over to that area, then he sails across the Aegean and lands a huge amount of troops at what's called the Battle of Marathon. Okay, and the Persians basically send this fleet to, if you don't know where Marathon is, it's the city of Athens is right here, okay, on the map. Marathon is actually really, really close to there. And what essentially happens then is that the Greeks win a very kind of like surprise victory, and the Persians basically go home. And that is the battle that we get the running race from, because after the battle, there's a messenger who runs back to the city of Athens and says that, oh yeah, like guys, like we won, and then he dies because he ran such a long distance. And so that's how we get the name of that thing today. And so, anyways, from that point on, then if we say, okay, how does perspective influence like how we see the causes of this? So from the perspective of the Greeks, right, we have a group of Greeks that is living over, I guess you could say, in the Persian Empire that want to be their own thing, but Persia comes in and slams them down. And therefore, Persia clamped down on the rebellion way too hard. They weren't tolerant, etc., 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 etc. Okay? From the Persians' perspective, the Persians are like, you're supporting a rebellion like within our empire. It would essentially be like Canada, for example, like trying to cause a rebellion, trying to cause Montana to have a rebellion against the United States over like maple syrup, and then the United States is like, dude, Canada, what are you doing? Which basically is the comparison there. Okay, horrible comparison, but there you go. Okay, so then from this point on, okay, what happens is that Persia, they get a new king. Okay, it's Darius' son. His name is Xerxes, and he marches an army all the way around the Aegean. Okay, because he wants to basically finish what his dad started. And this kind of gets down to the end of the Persian War, where he marches them all the way around the Aegean, down into Greece. Okay, and that's where the 300 Spartans hold at Thermopylae for 3 days while all the Greek city-states get organized. And all the Greek city-states at this moment unify. And that is probably one of the biggest, like, effects of the war that you could say happens here is that all these Greek city-states, which have been divided and oftentimes bickered with each other very nastily, actually come together and they help defeat the Persians eventually. Okay, now this happens after a whole series of battles, and really essentially only because that the Greeks cooperated. If they would not have, things wouldn't have worked. It's pretty simple how that equation essentially comes out. So, in terms of what happens to the Persians then, the effects of the war, from the Persians' perspective, they're completely unsuccessful. But of course, after Xerxes loses and he goes home, Persia always at this point is kind of looking like, how can we put the Greeks down? So that's kind of, it's going to happen in the future, but that's something they're going to be thinking about. It's like, how can we take an advantage of Greece, something happening there later? Okay, and so yes, the Athenians defeat the Persians go back home, and then that's the first war that happens. Okay, and then Peloponnesian. And then the thing to understand is I would, in your mind, so if I understand that the Persian War is first, I get how perspective influences, like, the cause, how I see the causes and effects of that, then I would take that and I would directly tie in the Peloponnesian War to that, because they are connected. And so, again, basically, we said that this was the first time that the Greek city-states had been united, and when that happens, not only was that one big effect, but then if you're, again, here, I'm going to go back and make sure I'm good on our objectives, because I always want to make sure I'm good on that. Examine the effects of the Peloponnesian War. Okay, so the effects of the Persian War then also help get us to, I guess you could say, an effect of the Persian War is it causes the Peloponnesian War. And so when we're looking at this, a big thing to not only understand, yes, we've done all this stuff in the Persian War, is that not only do all the Greek city-states unify during that, but it's afterwards they split apart. And basically it's because Athens goes through this pretty awesome time where they're like, they have a lot of prosperity, there's a lot of things good culturally, like good cultural things that are going on for them. And Sparta, its rival, had been for a long time, basically resented that. So it's like the classic, basically, like, the thing that comes to mind for me always is like Pokemon, where like you always pick like your first Pokemon, and then the guy like resents you, Gary I think it was, like resents you the entire time, and basically you start becoming rivals. Okay, and so basically what happens on from that point is Athens gets their friends, Persia gets their friends. So Athens forms the Delian League, Sparta forms the Peloponnesian League, which is how we get the name of this war. And then it's super savage, it's super bloody. All the Greek city-states are basically in this massive civil war where they're killing each other. And eventually what happens is that Sparta basically traps all the Athenians inside their city, because, again, the Spartan land army is nothing you want to mess around with. Okay. What happens from this then is that a plague breaks out in Athens. It kills a third of the population. And then what finally ends the war is that Sparta calls upon an enemy, but somebody who, I guess it would be called like making the deal with the devil. They're like, hey, Persians, you hate the Athenians for what they did, you know, trying to start that rebellion. Why don't you come in and destroy their fleet? Because Sparta didn't have a fleet. And so the Persians are like, we'd be happy to. And they come in, just basically wipe the floor with the Athenian navy, and Sparta is left over. Now, it seems like that would be really, really good for Sparta, but again, what basically happens from that point is that it leaves Greece open to invasion from our left-handed bisexual midget, Alexander the Great. Okay, so there you go. Whew. Who's Gary? Gary is, I'm pretty sure that was his name, wasn't it? Gary Pokemon? Pretty sure that was his name, and yeah, he's a jerk. Yeah, there he is. Oh, and he has a cape. Yeah, Gary Oak. He's related to I think. He was in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Whew. Oh man, that was a lot. My main man Xerxes. What is Pokemon? Oh well. How do I even begin to explain that? So what is Tidewater? The Tidewater, Megan, is this place. Actually, it's kind of funny. So maybe you've heard, Megan, of like there's this thing that was passed around in the last campaign cycle, called Drain the Swamp. Maybe you've heard of that. So like literally what the Tidewater is swamp. Because what happens, and it's actually like Tidewater is a really good name for it, because when the tide comes in, these areas flood, and they are like really, really well irrigated. They're good for growing crops, but then the Tidewater also, because it has water, and that water often then becomes stagnant, it's a super strong breeding ground for disease, and especially through mosquitoes. So that's what the Tidewater is. And so, I mean, I can pull up a map here, Tidewater, Virginia. The Tidewater region. There you go. So you can kind of see it in the red here on this map. And that should kind of make sense, right? It's the places of Virginia that's affected by the tide. But obviously, it's where the first people, and you can kind of see like the rivers going up it. It's where the first people who settled Virginia, meaning Europeans who settled Virginia, that's where they settle. So there you go. Oh, man. Remind me to never have Nick and Kyle in a chat at the same time. That was a mistake. Pokemon is a cult? I mean, if you're gonna describe something that everybody enjoys, who does it, as a cult, then I guess everything is a cult. No, Nick, no, Nick, no. Nick equals not God. You're pretty awesome, but I'm not sure if you're, like, what some people would consider to be that kind of status. Let's see. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes left here, because, like, I started the stream really, really late. So if you've got questions, guys, make sure you get them in, because I'm going to probably, like, either basically stop it if there aren't people asking questions, or I'm just going to like cut it off right at like 10 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to be right back here for a second. I'm going to grab a couple things. Your mommy says you're special. What are the Assyrians? The Assyrians are a group of Mesopotamian people that are known to be quite brutal. They're pretty savage, literally and metaphorically, or literally and figuratively. Yeah, they are meanie heads. They're pretty rough. They're like the Persians. They demand tribute from those people who they conquer, but when they conquer an area, they were pretty much perfect at doing so. Is my coffee level low? It is low. It's at 49%. But basically, yeah, they do it pro level. They come up with a whole bunch of really ingenious inventions. So like everything from boots to bows to armor to siege engines. They really like sieging places. That was like their thing. And when they did that, and when they took over an area, they basically, their typical response was one of three things. They either killed everyone, deported them, or they sold the inhabitants into slavery. So, and then basically what would happen is if you didn't pay tribute, or you didn't live up to the demands afterwards, if you were still lucky enough to be alive, they would normally do one of those things to you. The Persians are kind of the same way, but they're a little bit more tolerant, especially on the religious side of things. Yeah, the Persian, I guess the Persian model is like, you can do what you want as long as you pay tribute. The Assyrians are not that way. The Assyrians are like, you're going to do everything we tell you, and then you're still going to pay us. So there are high school bullies that steal lunch money. Yes, if by high school bullies you mean big, gigantic armies of men who steal your brains and your head and whatever else body parts they cut off, yeah, sure. You got it. I think I showed the picture of a flayed person in class, right? F-L-A-Y-E-D, flayed. It's where the Assyrians liked impaling people on posts, or they liked peeling people's skin off. What would you say the hardest topic on the final is, or the one kids struggle the most? Miss Stewart, you've got this is not good for your brain right now, girl. You shouldn't be on here. Only if you're listening to it. What would you say the hardest topic on the final is? On the world history final, I would tell you that typically what I've seen kids struggle with most in the past is India, China, so the things from topic 3, and then what I've alternatively seen, at least because, again, it's been a little bit different from how we did our schedule from this year to last year, I've seen kids struggle the most with the stuff in topic 7. So that was the stuff with feudalism. And that's because we talked, literally, there's, like, topic 7's this weird, like, smorgasbord of, like, the medieval ages. And so we go from the Byzantine Empire to Europe and Charlemagne to the Holy Roman Empire. And then we do that over to the Crusades, and then to Russia and the Mongols. And that's kind of like a weird way of looking at it, but it's probably the best way to do it. So I would say it's those two things, Miss Stewart. How many questions is there on the D-Cush final? Like 47? No, there's 73. Think. 73? Sounds right. I mean, I can go look just to double check. I don't know if it really matters, but D-Cush course map. No, we need to actually go to Canvas. Yeah, the final is also a little bit different. Is that Jonathan Dance? Just because I'm guessing off the first name. Let's see. 48 hours, man. Actually, less than that. It's like 36 hours till you guys take your finals. Super, super close. Yep, 73. Yep, 73. Nice. Yeah, dude. I must have been lazy on my drawing tonight. I only made one. I figured. I don't recognize the last name, but I'm going to guess that's some kind of manga or something. Who is Anne Hutchinson? She's a girl. Done. No, I'm just kidding. Who is Anne Hutchinson? Oh, anime. Okay, there you go. So Anne Hutchinson was a resident of Massachusetts. Okay. Yeah, you spelled it. I think you spelled that correctly. That looks right. Anne Hutchinson, yeah, she's a resident of Massachusetts, but she is very similar to Roger Williams in that she does not agree with how the Puritans want to run their world. Okay, now if you remember the Puritans, and like Pilgrims, we often think, the Pilgrims were a little bit more tolerant than the Puritans afterwards, but the Puritans, once they start setting up the Massachusetts Bay Colony, they're running it by their rules, and they really want to design that world and enforce it on themselves and other people, like those beliefs. And you can go back and look at those. And so what Anne Hutchinson and Roger Williams both want is essentially freedom of religion, and then Anne Hutchinson is essentially banished from the colony because she is holding Bible studies in her own house, and that for the Puritans, like a woman leading Bible studies in her own house, like those two things, woman and in her own house, was a huge issue, because they thought it had to be done from ministers, and there's like a whole like process that had to be gone through there. And so when Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson kind of run away to Rhode Island and a couple other places, basically they are looking at it from like a freedom to everybody else can worship how they want to. So there you go. I don't know who Cole Aping is. I mean, I did have a student named Cole once, but I don't think that was his last name. I know exactly who you're talking about, but I don't remember that being his last name. Said I'm a stud. Alright. Sure, thanks, bro. Yep, you're welcome. No worries. What else we got? Okay, so yeah, we only got 5 minutes left, so if you guys have any like last questions, now would be the time. Go ahead and get them in. Make sure I address any worries or concerns. I'm glad that we had more world history questions tonight, because that makes me happy, because I have 2 times as many world history kids as I do DKush kids, and it's really, really, really important that you guys ask questions, because you're only sophomores, most of you, and finals are a new experience, sort of. Oh, so this is cute. Here, I gotta show you guys this. Okay, so we took Booker to go see Santa tonight at UND. They had this really cute thing, and I'm gonna have to like line up the picture, and I'll have to kind of hold it here for a few seconds. So we took Booker to go see Santa, and he got pictures with Santa, which was super cute. And again, I don't know how well you guys can see these, but he's basically like looking at this and at this one. And then I think by far the better picture is actually the second one, which is really, really cute. And he's like looking up at Santa, and that's this one right here. So let me see if this actually lines up. And again, I know you may not be able to like see this perfectly, but yeah. So we got him printed off, and it's cute. Yeah. So he's looking up at Santa, and that one he's like, "Who are you? What's up with this beard?" So there you go. Give that a solid super cute out of 10. On a scale of cute to 10, how cute was it? And then I ate an entire cup full of puppy chow, and that was the end. That was how my night went. So there you go. I also tried to eat a peanut butter cookie that was actually a ginger snap cookie, and that felt real bad. So, that's life, man. Okay, so last questions. I guess if you guys don't have any last questions, again, I don't know if I'm going to stream tomorrow night. I get the feeling that I don't need to. What on earth is a ginger snap cookie? Look it up. Try one. And then regret that you tried it. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to live stream tomorrow. If I do, or if I don't, and I don't see you guys again until you take your final, I feel probably more this year than I have any other year that I have given you the tools that you guys need in order to actually make yourself successful, not just like on my final, but then on other finals that you guys can study. And I don't necessarily like want to take like this moment to go like on a complete soapbox about how I think I've done my job, but like I definitely feel that this year I've done probably more than I ever could have imagined I've done for any other class, or like class meaning the current students I have now, to do that. And so I want to make sure you guys know that when it comes to this final and I guess what's ahead of you in terms of like not just, I guess, even if you have me next semester or you don't, or you're dropping a class that you have with me, I feel really, really good about the fact that I've hopefully, again, tried to teach you something out of these courses, which has given you an ability to do anything anywhere. And kind of like one thing that's kind of like stuck with me, not just like for finals, but then like also with teaching and education, is that really the people who are going to be most successful at life are the people who are good at learning. And again, that can be very, very broad, but again, like, so I'll give you a perfect example here. It took me about 2 years to actually get really good at like setting up a live stream to how it like actually looks somewhat decent, okay? And I had no idea how to do this at all. And even like last week, I didn't even know how to get streaming music integrated into like very, very cleanly into a stream. And so I would tell you guys that like, this is something that not only will you go through right now in terms of like knowing how to learn and learning how to learn, it's something that's going to carry with you like your entire life. Because trust me, like these next few years for you are just going to be ones of transformative change that you're not going to be able to keep up with. So anyways, that was a long-winded way of me saying that I feel really, really good that you guys are prepared for this final. At least from what I could have done to help you. And I think all that's really left in the equation is what are you going to do? And so how are you going to spend these next 36 hours, if you're taking the final with me on Thursday, preparing for it? Because I think this is, I think finals are not necessarily a reflection of what you do in a class. I think they really are just like a reflection of who you are as a person. Like, so when you're presented with a challenge or something that seems like insurmountable, are you going to rise to the occasion? Are you going to do something about it? Okay. So anyways, with that 2-minute soapbox, and my extremely low coffee level now that is approaching critical danger levels, I'm going to leave you there. Okay. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay. If I have you on a Grove Day, and if I don't see you, because maybe I don't live stream for some reason tomorrow. I'm not really sure. I'm kind of like 50-50 on it right now. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, okay? So anyways, see you guys later. Peace.